And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you over here.
Reverend Z over here.
And Reverend Michelle over here.
And we're a few New Thought ministers talking about New Thought today. Welcome to the program. Now, most of you that watch this know that this is normally Rev Z and I, and so we're very, very excited to welcome a special guest all the way from the far side of the country in the Eastern Time Zone in New Jersey, to be specific. Rev Jersey Girl, also known as Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadleigh. Welcome, dear one.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being with us. Okay.
Yes.
Now, Z, we've been talking about what is commonly known as the global vision for the Centers for Spiritual Living. And for those that are just kind of joining the conversation here today, welcome. We'll get you caught up a little bit, because today is really all about recapping what we've looked at so far and what we've been discussing so far. So what I'd like to do here is just kind of run through our statements real quick for everybody. I have to make sure I find exactly which program I saved those slides to. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at these one by one and go through them. And Reverend Michelle is here to give us a new perspective. Folks have heard us babbling on about these for a few weeks now. We're going to get a new perspective today. So what we're looking at as far as the global vision, first and foremost, we envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. We see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought. A world where each and every person discovers his or her own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. And we envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. I feel like I just did one of those 5-paragraph introductions of a recording artist or something. So we know this is a lot, folks. We know there's a huge amount here. But the attempt, the intention behind all of this is to unpack these things. Yeah. And so, Reverend Michelle, Z and I have had about 4 weeks to go over all of that. How about we give you 20 minutes and you see what you can do with it?
You want me to pick this up? Okay. So, how do you normally do this? Do you normally go one statement at a time?
Well, where would you like to start? Yes.
Well, we've been talking about this for a couple of days in getting ready for the show, and I guess if I were in charge of the world, I would probably reduce these statements by reducing the amount of words that are in there. And I would take a highlighter and I would pull out a number of the most important words, in my humble opinion, and leave off the extra. And already, just in that very first statement where it says, we envision all people, all beings, and all life, there you go, and all life as expressions of God. To me, we've been saying this for years, as we believe in unity. We believe in unity, and which I guess they extended to make it more clear, and yet I think it's a lot of extra. The Science of Mind, one of Science of Mind's gifts to the world, one of New Thought's gifts to the world. I don't want to just say Science of Mind, unity, divine science, all of them. One of the greatest gifts. And I know there's all the rhetoric about, we're not really New Thought, blah, 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 whatever. But one of the gifts that we have given the world is to encourage individuals to see themselves as one with and not separate from. And so even with the, face it, we've all just been, we Americans, we've just been through a really hard time. And I don't care what side of the fence you're on. we've all been collectively holding our breath, wondering what the heck was going to happen this past week. I was going to say last Tuesday, but it was the whole week. And so, if we believe what this says, we envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God, then I need to remember that right smack in the middle of that kind of political climate.
Yeah.
If not, I'm just playing. And I don't play like that. I'm not a religious person, so to speak. But I believe in humanity, and I do believe in the unity of life. And so that means I've got to go all in. I've got to go all in. There's no exceptions. Jesus says, "Love thy neighbor." All versions, all colors, and so I think that unity, the idea of unity itself, is the greatest gift, because we don't play in the world of blame and shame and sin in the way that many of us were reared. Thank God I was not reared that way, but many have been reared, and many have been damaged.
Yeah.
The problem, I'm not going to pick on any religion. I'm not. Not even, I don't even want to say except, but where one finds themselves fearful, then to me, that God needs to be thought about again, because my God doesn't cause me to have to be fearful. And that's what I would like to see us and take out of this global vision, is living a life as fearless as we possibly can. I'll shut up now.
No, I don't think any need to shut up there. I think we absolutely agree with you, and I love the way you put that. Right? If anything out there is causing me fear, if fear is used to control the parishioners, if you will, the congregants, if you will, if fear is used to control anyone's perception of what's going on, that doesn't do anybody any good.
Right.
Right.
And the whole idea of fear, in my mind, it speaks to that whole idea of not really understanding and embracing the allness and the unity and the expression of the one thing. Because to I can understand the apprehension maybe of not understanding how to use the thing or the thing itself, but to be fearful of it, knowing that, or having an understanding that we are all expressions of it, and that there should not be any fear around it. There should be some surrender of trying to learn how to use it better, right? You know, when a kid first starts driving a car, they may be a little apprehensive, and some may call it fear, but I prefer to you say they're apprehensive because they're not aware of all the road rules and how to merge into a lane and all that. But the more that they understand that they become one with that car and it moves with them and it's almost thinking with them, the fear goes away or the apprehension goes away, and now it becomes a point of awareness.
Right.
I want to add to something you just said, Susie. It's a slightly different direction, but I was actually Reverend Dr. Carol Corns, a senior minister in our movement somewhere in California right now. And many years ago, she introduced me to a book called James Allen. Oh, oh, it
As
just
a
went
man
in and out.
thinketh.
No, 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 no. One with all life. One with all life, I believe. And it was the story of this dog, this military dog or police dog turned actor. And what happened was, in the telling of the story, this beautiful, brilliant shepherd, the gentleman who wound up being the caregiver for this dog, or the caretaker for this dog, He had to learn how to communicate with the dog. Instead of thinking that the dog had to be trained, he found out that he had to learn to pay attention and to speak with the dog. And the book goes on to talk about many ways that we move in right alignment with animals and the animal world. It ends up talking a little bit about insects. It got a little weird for me at the end, however, but it changed my relationship to all animals. Permanently changed my relationship to all animals. And that goes back to, again, living one with. That goes back to unity. I'm going to find out while you guys are chatting. I'm going to go look for it so I can get the right name for it. But
I think I found it by James Allen.
yes, James Allen.
Yeah, there's one with all life.
Yeah, One with All Life. Please, it's a short, easy read. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a little see. And I think you mentioned the word when you use the word apprehensive. Some people go out in the woods and they're apprehensive, or they're apprehensive about certain animals. And yet, when we learn that we are in communication all the time, even with animals, it starts to change our relationship with life around us.
Yeah.
And that again is that's the part where we say we envision all people, but all beings, all of life. And I don't know. I feel very passionate about that book and about learning how to live in relationship with all these, with everything that's around us.
Yes.
I have to jump in there and agree
Yeah.
because it this philosophy changed my life in those regards. It changed my life in relationship to pets, to wild animals, to just the squirrel that runs across the lawn and all of that. And really all of that prepared me for what it would take to relate to children as well. I wouldn't be the father if I am without these principles, without this philosophy. And
Right.
and you bring forth a great point here, Michelle, because these statements, the global vision, really, as you're sharing, I'm looking, we say all life in here, and it sometimes we go to great lengths, painfully great lengths sometimes, to try to encompass everything and get everything covered. But I don't see anything in here about our oneness with our furry creatures and the scaly creatures and the creepy crawly creatures and wings or legs or scales or whatever it might be. We want to remember that that's part of this as well, right, folks? We're coming to a greater understanding that my actions, who I am, what I do, how I show up in the world, has an effect on all life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something, something that I've said before, and I will always say it because I know it to be so true, and that is we live in a symbiotic relationship with everything on the planet. The 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 exhale of one thing is the inhale of another thing, if you
Mm,
will. And so there's that relationship that creates this oneness for real. That if we begin to get out of sync with that, or we start diminishing certain aspect of it, it will affect the whole. And
yeah.
then that's gonna start escalating things and moving us down a track that won't support all life.
Right. I've been there's something I've been saying for years and years and years, and I swear it came out of a Kenny Loggins song, but I've not since been able to find it. But the statement is there is no private good,
Mhm.
which also means there is no private bad, but there is no private good. And so and it's that same thing about letting your light shine, because when your light shines any one place, it shines for all of us, right?
Mhm.
The more I lift you, I'm automatically lifted. And then as we lift each other, we bring others with us. And and that's what we're doing. That's what all people, all beings. There
Mhm.
is no private good. So it's because I know that's another thing about some of the other religions about being meek. there's a whole other meaning than what I think it has, how it's been translated. Because to be in the fullness of your humanity is to give others permission to be in the fullness of their humanity.
Right. Right. And it's like that saying that goes, a high tide raises all boats.
Yeah.
So as we begin to cultivate this idea of oneness and higher levels of consciousness and action, and that we are connected with all things, that consciousness, that high tide of understanding begins to raises everyone's boat, if you will. And so now we can begin to sail at a great pace together, uh, which is what we need.
And so, because when we were yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in so quick.
No, no.
You keep sparking thoughts, And because I said to you, I'm always the practical, in my teaching, wherever I am, I'm very pragmatic. I often don't have a lot to say, but if I do, it's about the practical side of it. Because the one thing about this is that, and let's say the parents out there who are either not in this teaching or who are in this teaching and haven't yet realized, when you raise your own self-worth, your own self-value, your own self-confidence, and you as a human become more fully expressed, the overflow and the impact upon your children and or your grandchildren, for those of us who are grandparents, the overflow to the children and the grandchildren, it's not like it comes from me to them. It's automatic. It's through God, through me, through them, and it's automatic. So it's the reason why it doesn't ever pay to worry, right? Because worry is the investment of what we don't want. We know that. But the moment we lift our ideas and we lift our confidence and we lift the way we see the world, they automatically come with us.
Yeah.
It's automatic. And I think parents think often they have to teach that. You have to be it.
Right.
And this vision is about being it.
And then they become teenagers and hold you accountable to what you taught them. And what you said you believed and what you said you were practicing all along. And I love where this is going, because this actually does lead us into that second statement in many ways, right? We see a world where each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing the unity with God and connection with each other. We're all in this together. A world which individually and collectively we're called to a higher state of consciousness and action. And I'll tell you, my teenagers are absolutely called to a higher state of consciousness and action because they've been brought up in this philosophy. Because and I don't know if they're listening, but the way they might tell it is because they've had to put up with mom and dad and all their stuff all these years.
Yeah.
But my kids understand, if you ask a why question in this household, you get one answer: because. You ask why, dad's going to say there's no, why is never a relevant question. What can I do? How can I be a part of this? How do I serve? How do I show up? Opens us to an even greater question of how do we really raise ourselves to a higher consciousness and therefore take more inspired action.
I just want to put a pin for another show at another time. I agree with your kids that asking why is critical. That's the one thing I would argue against. But I'll never forget. Can you hear this? The leaf blower outside my yard. Okay, good. I can remember my son was 13 and he grew up in this movement. He grew up in it, right? So, and he was sitting in the back of the car explaining to a friend of his who did not go to our center what the 4 agreements were. And I thought, oh my God. And even if it's something like that, I mean, unfortunately that friend of his, that precious boy, died a year ago in a skiing accident, and it breaks my heart when I think about it. But there they were, these 2 boys trying to figure out life, and And there was this religious scientist trying to explain what the four agreements were. But it gets in them at a cellular level. It does.
Yeah.
And we're just sitting here talking about education and stuff, and it just reminds me about my two of my kids who grew up in this movement, and they also were Montessorians. They went to a Montessori school, which cultivated, if you will, the new thought perspective of being able to work independently in pairs and groups, being able to stand on your own, being able to share and help someone in your group, because the grades was first, second, and third. So you might be at a third grade level on this and a first grade level on that. So the whole idea of sharing and being responsible for yourself and others, it just cultivated such a sense of sharing and unity. But more importantly, like you were saying before, Michelle, a self identity and a self esteem that I can do this and I can help others, which is a grounding for what we try and espouse for New Thought. That's where we are. We have to, help one another. You may be stronger, I may be weaker, but together we can make this thing happen. And if we can get it to our kids more and more at those ages, they're going to take care of themselves.
I'm one of my favorite things in the world to do, and it's been I ended a class this past year. I taught for home office practitioner class for 2 years. Um, One of my favorite things in the world to do is to train practitioners and to support them in becoming powerful. And what I see though, where Christian scientists have for years and years and years and years promoted using their practitioners, and they have many nurses, because they didn't allow for medical care, right? So they had to lean on their faith. Now as we all know, Ernest Holmes says the power's in the prayer, and the pill, right? So we believe in form and in the formless, which is fantastic. But what I don't see enough of our congregants and using the very faith through practitioners that I'd like to see them using. Because it doesn't mean that you don't go to doctors, but if you can go to a doctor and you can be faithfully rocked with a treatment around you as you go to the doctor, anytime I've seen that happen, I've seen healing expedited tremendously, because we combined form and formless together. Um, and that is also who we are. That's what Science of Mind is in the world, is bringing the spiritual into the human, so we could be spiritually human, and combine these two things. That's the kind of humanity I believe we're trying to support with this global vision.
Yeah. Oh, amen. 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 Whoo, folks. Can you get it? Can you dig it? Can you hear it? This is what this entire experiment in ministry, if you will, is all about. New Thought Media Network, the most positively inspiring media network on the planet. We are here to bring you positive music, messaging, entertainment, and media. And we do it thanks to viewers and listeners like you. So we're going to take just a real brief minute here to allow one of our sponsors to say thank you. Take a 45-second break, grab a drink of water. Don't go too far, because we'll be right back with more New Thought Today.
New Thought Radio, music from all your favorite New Thought artists. From Jamie Lula, Karen Drucker, Gary Lynn Floyd, Ricky Byers, Daniel Nahmod, Eddie Watkins Jr., and many, many more. 24/7 New Thought Radio. Positively inspiring.
And we're back. This is New Thought Today. Happens every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Normally, this is Rev Z and myself discussing the global vision and other guiding principles of the New Thought and religious science philosophy. Today, we're really, really blessed. We have a great and dear friend, Rev Jersey Girl, with us, also known as the Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadleigh. And we've been having a great conversation so far around the first couple of statements on the global vision. In this next segment, we want to dig in. This one's a little bit more. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought. A world where each and every person discovers his or her own personal power and an ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. Gang, I'm always interested in that last part. How do we create and how do we know that we're creating a world that works for everyone?
Ooh. Well, one thing that Ernest said, and I know I'm not going to quote him perfectly, but he said, if it promotes life, then it's affirmative. If it's not promoting life, it's not affirmative. And so I like to lean on that because we know on this planet life is prime, right? And if we're not enhancing that and supporting that and sustaining that in some kind of way, then I think we begin to fall short of the golden idea of what we are and what we are here to do, which is to promote and sustain life. And just like with a plant, I like to garden, so I know sometimes I may have to prune my plant to make it grow fuller and stronger, but that is in support of life, not in the non-affirmation of life. And so I think that, for me, that's what that says. We have to be for life and promote it.
All right. Thank you. Reverend Michelle?
Well, I think where I might take exception.
Yeah, that's all right.
You didn't invite me here to pull this apart. No, I'm not taking exception with anything you said, Rev Z. I'm taking exception with the one word that we're here to create a world that works for everyone. It already is.
Fair enough.
That's the thing, and that's hard to see. It's really hard to see the perfection when we're down in the weeds. It's hard to see when we look through our human eyes and we see what we think of as people suffering. And I'm the first one to say that I want to be all about, supporting people to not suffer anymore. So this is where it gets very kind of complicated. You got to pull it apart because there is a perfection that already exists. It already exists.
Right.
And yet if we go too high and separate ourselves too much, we could almost be guilty of not doing anything and appearing not to care. So I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about backing up so much, but a small example. When I was never young in this teaching. I got in this teaching at a good age anyway, at a ripe age. But when I started, if I saw somebody crying, and it hooked me, my heart got hooked. I thought that I had to go and do something. I thought I had to help go fix it or lend a hand or provide a tissue, whatever that is. Now, if I see you cry, I let you cry.
Right.
Now, as a minister of a congregation, being one who has a congregation that I love and support and minister to, I might, if you were crying, I might look at you and say, "Are you okay?" And if you say you're okay, I'm going to let you keep crying.
Right.
I mean, if you're slobbering and falling over yourself, I'm going to get involved. But see, I've learned that there is a perfection because we can't think that we can run away from pain and run away from what we think of as suffering and run away from all those things, and then garner the fodder that is necessary to grow ourselves to be the fullness of our being.
Right.
It has to be all of it. It's like, and it's like shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for me to not have a shadow. That's impossible. For it's for my what's mine to do is to love, accept, embrace the shadow. Love, accept, and embrace it, so that I can excuse me, so I can experience my fullness. And so yeah, we are here to lift and help and love and support and educate and inspire, while in the back saying there's a perfection to all of life, and I'm going to trust it.
Yes. Even the things that make me go, what? And I learned early on, I don't know that I was ever young in this philosophy either, but I learned early on in this, and what you just shared, Reverend Michelle, is what I learned as the lesson of the tissues. Excuse me. We're in rooms together, we're processing together, things are people are changing, and if someone is moved to tears, the last thing I want to do is shove a tissue in their face and tell them it's not right. And here, stop that. And I was taught very early on, that is me. That desire is my ability to be uncomfortable with your uncomfort. I can't handle that you are moving through something and I've got to try to fix you or help you not experience it, when oftentimes the most spiritual thing, the most sacred thing is to be witness and be available without interfering, without interceding.
I think I shared with you when you guys had me on a couple of weeks ago for something at a camp. Oh, it was Friday morning. And I think I shared the story about my son who was playing baseball, and he had that screaming coach.
Yeah.
And all of the mom in me wanted to rip that guy apart. To be perfectly honest, I was still new in the movement. I still was a little feistier then. I had my Jersey bite then, and I couldn't believe the way this man treated these children. But when I asked my son, "Can you handle it?" and he said yes, there was a trust that got established between the two of us. Now he could grow on that, and I could just now watch him from a distance and say, "Okay, he's got this." And that's, I think we need to do more of that, and not think that anything we feel has to be fixed. It doesn't.
Right.
It just has to be felt.
Right. And that's part of the process, right? I mean, to me, that's that cultivation process that we talk about when we talk about soil, seed, and plant from a religious science perspective, in that the idea, the fulfillment of what a seed is or is to become is already in the seed. We don't need to try to do anything to make that apparent to the seed. We just need to put the seed in an environment and check on it like you did. Can you handle this? Occasionally to make sure it's got enough sun, light, water, whatever it is, minerals in the soil, staying with that metaphor. But then it has within itself what it needs to become whatever it is, if you will. And so that's what it means to me, is that to create a cultivating, supportive, enhancing environment for each and every one of us to grow into whatever our seed is, if you will. Apple, date palm, mango, whatever it is. And don't try to make my mango look like an orange or a grapefruit, because it just ain't going to happen.
I promise not to cross your grapefruit with a mango. I like mangoes. I can't stand grapefruits. That would be terrible. I couldn't do that.
And I know that I feel like we're off topic, but I guess it's all free here. There are ministers everywhere around the world right now who are the consciousness of communities. And if you are part of a community that has that that format, that paradigm, please love on your minister right now, because a lot of us are feeling a little bit helpless because we're used to being more effective. We're used to caring for our congregation in a more up close and personal way. And right now, I want to tell you, while everyone's getting lost in their own, anxiety, and there's a lot going on, and I understand it, but take a little time, love on your minister, love on them. They need you. And if it's not your minister, if it's a boss, then you're having to work from home, and they're used to making things work. Everybody's feeling, the people in charge are feeling a little bit impotent, and they could use a little love and support, a little TLC, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, now more than ever is that reminder that even in what appears to be separation, we're being told to stay separate. That is an appearance. That is a perception. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're still all a part of this oneness.
Yep.
And we're all still here to support and love on each other, and to be that shoulder, and to be that confidant, and to be that person that, honey, you can say anything and we won't tell anybody. I've always appreciated that about this philosophy. There is, for the most part, my experience has been there is a deep adherence to, I'm going to let you have your experience. I will be here and witness that and journey with you, and I will do everything, and I will keep that between us. And I think that opens the door for true healing, for true transformation, for a true growth, and stepping into somewhere new is when I know, for me, when I know that I can be really real and know that it's never going anywhere else. Hey, we got a relationship now. We've got something.
Right.
We've got a way we can all grow.
Right. Because if we don't, as we all know, we all have these different personas within this one self, right? I have the persona of father, of husband, of minister, of employee, uh, and God knows how many else. Um, so what you really see when you see me is an amalgamation of all these things that are able to jump into action, if you will, at the right moment in the right time to fulfill that aspect of life. And so, you know, how many of us guard certain parts of those personas because we don't want somebody to know about it? There was a training that we went through for practitioner called Voice Dialogue, which was a program that allowed us to get in touch with these different aspects of ourselves, the wounded child, or the bad child, or whatever the different uh, archetypes, if you will, that reside in each and every one of us. And so when we begin to recognize first and foremost that they are there, and that we can have different dialogues within ourselves to understand how to operate within that sphere of the oneness of me, then we can begin to express that a lot better in the world, because that's what all this is, right? We're all different personas, and we have, as they did in the Roman, that we wear the mask so we can project that thing. And what we really want to project is love and faith in the oneness of all things, and that we are uniquely and deeply one.
My favorite quote of all times is Socrates' quote, to know thyself is to have the keys to the universe. And I think that we're starting to do that in our movement and require that. And I still think we have a long way to go. I think it's really important that we really truly get to know, not to know in order to fix, but to understand. Because when I understand my inner landscape, I can then meet you there and sense you and feel you, and we can, you said before, have a symbiotic relationship. We can have a greater symbiotic relationship when I know who I am.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And it is my, it's not just my opinion, but the pain of our planet, the pain of our country, the pain in racism, the pain in gangs, the pain, all of that pain is now all tied, to me, all tied into not knowing oneself, not loving oneself, not understanding how valuable and worthy we are. And if there's a sin, it would be that, not knowing how incredibly brilliant you are. Because if you know that, you're going to behave a lot, differently, and you're going to make room for others. You're going to make room for others.
Yeah. I'm reminded of the quote or the teaching that basically says it's easier to tell the truth because the truth doesn't change. When you
Yeah.
lie, you have to keep track of all the different lies.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to be really authentic, when I truly know myself, then I can be authentic. Then there's no lying. But if I don't know myself, then all I'm doing is trying to be who I think you need me to be or want me to be or what I can be to get one over on you or to whatever it might be. And now I'm just living one lie after another lie after because I'm going to lie to every one of you down the line to get either what I think I want or what I think you need me to be.
Mm-hmm.
When we can show up and just be me, I got a lot. I don't have to remember my story. I don't have to, right? I can just show up.
Yeah, because it's like, again, I love all my little metaphors, but it's like coming to a buffet table, and there's all kinds of foods there, and there's something there that you don't like, and so you start railing against the whole buffet table. I know buffets are not in vogue now with the COVID, uh, but to start saying no, we got to take the whole buffet down because there's sauerkraut on the table or gefilte fish on the table, and you don't like that. Just don't get it. Just move right. I don't need to lie about it. I don't need to make up a story about it. I can just say I don't like sauerkraut, so I'm going to move to the next item on the table, and maybe I like that. And so when we can begin to engage ourselves in that way, we may not like all of the aspects of ourselves, the smorgasbord of us,
Right.
but we don't need to lie about it because now we get into deeper and deeper trouble. I'm not being authentic. I will erode my own self confidence and self esteem when it's just easy to say, all right, well, that's something I didn't learn or I'm learning or working on. And, I pray I get better and just let it go, not lie about it.
So one of the things that I even want to promote once I start doing the show on Thursdays is this authentic conversation like we're having. And so I just always call it true confessions. And I want to tell you, I was so needy. I have been so needy, not now, not within the last X number of years, thank you, God. But coming up and coming even while beginning in this teaching, I was so needy to be needed. I was, it's not that I thought I was anything wonderful in that way, but I just needed you to see me or to be helpful or to some aspect of it. To the degree, now I'm going to tell you something you're going to relate to. I'd go to either a Silomar, I'd go to ministers' conference, and I'd show up needy. So because I'm showing up needy, what do? I pale by comparison. And for years, every year I wanted to go to a Silomar, and every year I wanted to go to conference, and every year I wanted to go to the ministers' gathering. But I was needy, but I'm also an introvert. So get how this works. So what happened was I wanted to be seen and known and all of that, but I was also an introvert. I don't do well in crowds. I don't. I'm okay with this amount of people. I don't do well in crowds. And so what would happen is there'd be a party somewhere, a whole bunch of laughter, and I'd be feeling like I was missing out. And then I'd force myself to get out of my room and go. And I was miserable. I was miserable because I don't do well in crowds. And then at one point I realized I'm a damn introvert. I'm going to let myself be an introvert. I don't need to be seen. I don't need to meet another person. I don't need any of that. And I finally came into myself more, and everything changed. It changed. So when we get to that place where we're in our fullness, we are more authentic, and we don't need others and other things to fill us. And what a relief. It's been painful being me. It's painful being in the skin.
And that hits right on the top of that number 3, where it says humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence. It's when we can step into that kind of space that we awaken to our magnificence. We're not trying to do any manipulation with it. We just awaken to it and say, aha, here's the sweet spot. Let's get busy.
Right. Exactly. Hey, speaking of getting busy, folks, Reverend Michelle is going to be getting busy here on the New Thought Media Network. She is launching a program. It's going to be on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time of noon Eastern Time. Please tell your friends, Jersey Girl Wisdom. And we're giving her her own show. We're going to let her run loose, let her do whatever she wants to do, talk about whatever she wants to talk about, and we're going to bring it to you here on New Thought Media Network. Reverend Michelle, give us just a brief overview. What do you got in store for us?
The acronym I came up with was ART. Authenticity, raw, undefended opinions, and transparency. And I want to invite everyone on there. And I will have ministers, and I will have musicians, and I will have people that have some impact on the world, but I want to give them an opportunity to just be so Z or so Robert or so whoever it is, that for that 30 minutes, you don't have to try to impress anybody. You don't have to try to be what you're not. You don't have to try to be spiritual. You just get to be you. And my goal here is to then give other people permission in their own lives to be in that same experience. And that's what Jersey Girl Wisdom will be, and some of the feistiness of being from New Jersey. we are a different walk.
Yes, I can agree with that. And both Z and I have spent our time in Jersey. I was born from Jersey myself, so I plan on tuning in, and I look forward to listening in and being able to catch your program. So, hey, folks, real quick, we're going to take another 45-second break and give our sponsors a chance to say hello and give you a chance to learn just a little bit more about who New Thought Media Network is. Give us 45 seconds, and we'll be right back with more of New Thought Today.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
All right, and we're back. This is New Thought Today. Happens every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain here on the New Thought Media Network. And most weeks, this is myself and Rev Z discussing global vision. This week, our dear friend, Rev Jersey Girl, also known as Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadleigh, is gracious enough to join us and join in the conversation. And I tell you, it's been a rousing 45, 50 minutes so far, which leaves us just a little bit of time to recap on our fourth statement of the day. And this has been, Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
I want to interrupt for 1 second because I peeked on Facebook and one of our listeners asked the question, why is New Thought Movement constipated? And I wrote back saying, really, you think it's constipated? And I said, say more. So I just want to say that I'd like to know more about what he's thinking. I hope he responds because I actually don't see it that way. I think that any way that we show up in the world is dependent upon who's displaying it. And in my little speck of the world, I don't feel like it's constipated. I feel like it's very freeing and loving and expanding. So I'm really hoping, oh, I see. He's saying it has slowly progressed through mainstream thinking and living. Yeah, we're new. We're still new. We are new considering religions. We are new in our influence. We call ourselves New Thought, and yes, we all know it's not really a new thought, but showing up in the world, I mean, it has been very good for New Thought. We have learned to reach out. We have crossed boundaries. We have people who have customers and clients and students from around the world. I think you're going to see a whole different version of New Thought as the world comes out of this COVID situation. But that's all. I just wanted to speak to it, and I appreciate you saying that, Wayne. And I always want to respond to what's on there. So I'll shut up now.
Absolutely. No, and I agree with you. It wasn't lost on me. Now, this isn't our politics show, folks, so this isn't about getting political. But the other night, I heard a speech by a couple of folks that are claiming to be winners. Right? I'm not going to try to play any side. I think they won. But in the Democratic victory speeches, both speakers, Kamala and Joe, both spoke to pieces that are part of New Thought philosophy, and almost verbatim quoting Marianne Williamson. A couple of words different, and they both were quoting Marianne in one way or another. So I want to agree. I think this is really an exciting time to bring this philosophy forward. I would, truthfully, I'd love to say we were mainstream. I don't think we're anywhere near mainstream yet. I think that in many ways, most people have no clue what we're talking about here today. So for all of you that are hanging out and listening and digging and grooving and coming along with us and exploring and asking these types of questions, kudos to you for asking the questions, because that's how we grow in New Thought. Z, you're muted, but I think we've got your mic closed. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, because the thing is, we're not mainstream, I think, as a entity, so to speak. But we are most definitely mainstream in terms of the ideas that are the foundation of this teaching. And that what we need to begin to do is have more conversations like this. And like I always say, for those of you who are listening and are enjoying this, are intrigued by it, tell a friend to tell another friend to come join us right here on New Thought Today, so we can begin to have this conversation and expound on these ideas and create a place where we can have this discussion in a nice, easy, if you will, informative way. Because I think Dr. King made a statement about how you get things started or how you move forward. And that goes, we just have to take the first step in faith. Just take the first step. We don't need to see the whole staircase, as Dr. King said. We just need to see the first step. And right now, that step is to begin to talk about these ideas, to experiment with these ideas, come back with your experiences and engagements, so we can begin to raise this water, this tide, as we said earlier, so that all boats will rise for the consciousness that we are beginning to espouse as religious science and New Thought practitioners.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a way you can join the conversation. ministertalk@ntmedia.org. Drop us an email. Let us know what you're thinking of this program. Let us know what you'd like more of. Let us know if you'd like to be a guest, if you'd like to come and join us and sit in and be part of one of these conversations with us. Our intention is to continue through the next coming months to explore the remaining statements on the Center for Spiritual Living Global Vision. and hopefully wrap that up right around the very first of the year or just after the beginning of the year. And then we're going to continue to launch into other ideas around how did we get to where we are, but more importantly, how do we use this philosophy? How do we use these principles? The line I love is to create the life you truly desire, to be a beneficial presence on the planet, to be out there serving and supporting humanity in our evolution. So, folks, we're getting real close to that time where we'll have effectively used your entire hour. But before we want to do that, let's how about some final closing thoughts? Let's start with Reverend Z, and then we'll move around the circle here.
Well, my patented one is conversate and research. Right? Discussion, research, discussion, and have conversation. That's how we're going to move forward and begin to be vulnerable to each other and love one another for the level of heart that we bring to the conversation.
Right on. Reverend Michelle.
I think one of the greatest gifts we can give to anybody, especially across the Nile, if that's where they are, is to commit to the spiritual practice of being curious. Remain curious. Want to seek to understand. The whole seek ye first to understand, then be understood. If you want to save yourself a boatload of pain in your life, you will practice to understand first, and then let your opinion come. But first, remain curious and ask somebody. Ask them why. Ask them why. What is it about that? What matters to you? And then you'll be listening to them, and we will be in the conversation that Reverend Z is talking about. So open your heart and remain curious.
I love that. You might have to sell me a little harder on the question why part, but I love the stay curious part. So,
well, since you're going to be on my show on Thursday, we can talk about that on Thursday.
There we go. Okay. So do remember, folks, Rev Jersey Girl, Thursday at 10 Mountain. And what I'd like to leave you with today is it struck me, how are you creating the environment? How are you creating an environment for yourself where you can feel nurtured, where you can feel loved, where you can study these principles, where you can share with someone around your journey with these principles and these practices? Now, that sounds like a shameless plug, because New Thought Media Network is all about creating that environment and supporting you in creating the environment that works for you. From our spiritual practices in the mornings to our prayer practices, conversations, open dialogues, entertainment, media, and music, New Thought Radio Network, New Thought Radio, it's all here to support you in creating that environment. So I want to invite you, before we're done here today, to number one, go on over to newthoughtmedianetwork.org and check out our brand new website, all kinds of fun stuff over there. And while you're there, you're going to find a button that says donate. Now, when you click on that, you're going to learn more about our fall fundraiser. And we have a really amazing event coming up for you. I've got a whole collection of musicians, artists, speakers. While we were on this program, I got confirmation that Janice Stanfield's going to make a guest appearance. All kinds of fun stuff happening. Friday, November 20th, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. A live stream. I know Rev Z, I know Rev Michelle, you're both going to be with us that evening at different points. So I invite you to be a part of that. And hey, check it out. There's all kinds of great gifts for you to say thank you for your support, your love, your tithes, your offerings, and all the good that you bring to this network. Because honestly, we wouldn't do it if it weren't for you. It wouldn't be anywhere near as fun if it weren't for you. And so we want to know, again, how can we support you in this journey? Drop us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. All right, what do we got? 10 seconds. Love, light, and insight. I just stole Z's line. Anyone?
That's all we need.
Reverend Michelle, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you all again next week, folks, on New Thought Today, Tuesdays at 2. Until then, peace and blessings.
Love you guys. Be well.